Revealed. The inspiring moment. When a billionaire quivered before a hidden hero, a black janitor. Charlie stood in the glow of a flickering fluorescent light, his broom sweeping the same corridor he'd walked down countless times. Sweat trickled down his spine, matching the sorrowful ache of unfulfilled dreams. The prestigious university buzzed on the other side of the walls, oblivious to the brilliance that thrived in the shadows. With each stroke of the broom, he could hear the hum of discussions on environmental sustainability, yet he remained invisible, trapped in the janitor's closet of stereotypes and systemic neglect. But he wasn't just a janitor. He was also a scientist at heart, working tirelessly beneath the surface. Each night, while others rested, Charlie scribbled equations and theories, inching closer to a solution to a problem that felt grander than mere environmental issues. Would they ever see him? Would they ever care? As the sweat trickled faster, he pushed the dark thoughts aside. His heart raced with a mix of desperation and determination, questions gnawing at him like moths to cloth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With his makeshift experiments laid out around him, materials scavenged from the campus waste, Charlie took a deep breath, letting the determination drown out the whispers of self-doubt. Tonight was different. Tonight could be the night. And yet, anxiety knotted within him. The looming shadows of economic disparity and societal prejudice clouded his thoughts, threatening to derail his focus. Could he truly be on the verge of something significant? Or was he simply chasing a mirage, lost in the fervor of his own imagination? And then she entered, Angela Hart, the billionaire at the helm of the new initiative. With her designer clothes and an aura of authority, she embodied everything Charlie believed kept him trapped beneath the surface. His heart fell as he felt the familiar pangs of inferiority, the instinct to retreat, to dissolve into the shadows. But as she approached, something stirred within him. Angela's eyes darted around the room, and for a fleeting moment, their gazes locked. Her expression faltered, caught between ambition and curiosity, just like his. Feelings collided, admiration interlaced with an acute awareness of her position. He straightened his back, determined not to appear small, even if every fiber in him screamed otherwise. Her world was one of pipelines and riches, his of scraps and dreams. The weight of this moment pressed on him, made his throat tight. Did he dare reveal his work? Did he risk the chance of being laughed at or worse, dismissed? Charlie's hands trembled as he gestured toward his experiment, the ingenious blend of creativity and science, a reflection of his soul laid bare. As he spoke, Angela's interest shifted. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes when he articulated his ideas, a change from mere ambition to something deeper, something she hadn't anticipated. Yet, as he detailed his theories, he felt the heaviness of impending judgment tethering back any confidence he summoned. Charlie stood on the precipice of revelation, teetering between vulnerability and the possibility of recognition. Each heartbeat thudded louder in the silence, a chant of hope tinged with fear. This was the moment fears would either ignite his flames or douse them before they sparked. In that breath-holding silence, the whispers of power dynamics echoed ominously around them. What barriers loomed on the horizon? The invisible walls of bias and jealousy tightened around him. As they stood at the edge of transformation, a flicker of hope glimmered in his heart, yet so did the shadow of doubt. Would Angela choose to stand by him when the storm broke? As the stakes rose, Charlie found the question brewing in his mind. How much of himself was he willing to sacrifice for recognition? The moment hung heavy, sharp enough to slice through the darkness, beckoning the next chapter of their intertwined fates. Angela's gaze narrowed, her curiosity morphing into something more profound. Charlie felt a surge of adrenaline. He had done it. He had captured her attention, if only for a moment. Yet the silence threatened to swallow him whole. A silence underscored by the ticking clock that echoed through the dimly lit hallway. Now or never, he thought, the urgency compelling him to push past the torment of his nerves. I've been working on a new method to purify water using bio-waste materials, he began, his voice becoming steadier as he spoke. It involves a sustainable approach that could drastically reduce our dependency on harsh chemicals. The words tumbled out with a fervor rooted in passion, as if each one was a small torch illuminating his desperate hopes. Images of his parents flashed in his mind, teaching him to dream bigger than his circumstances. And suddenly, standing before Angela didn't feel so terrifying. Angela listened, her brow slightly furrowed as she absorbed his intricate descriptions. For the first time, Charlie didn't see a billionaire dissecting the worth of his ideas, but rather a partner in potential, scrutinizing the merits of his work. Her brows lifted slightly in surprise. "Why haven't you shared this with more people?" she asked, genuinely intrigued. The question hung in the air like a delicate thread weaving their realities closer together. Charlie hesitated, the familiar fears leaping back into his chest. "I'm just a janitor," he said, the words escaping his lips with a bitter tinge. "Who would listen to me?" "No one starts at the top, Charlie. Everyone has a journey," Angela countered, the steel in her tone buoying his resolve. Something pivotal turned within him. It was as if the years of invisibility were peeling away, layer by layer. His thoughts raced. Could he truly abandon the burden of his self-imposed prison? He felt a flicker of the man he aspired to be, but reality tugged at his sleeve, reminding him of the risks involved. If he pursued this, what would it mean for his daily life? Would he still be welcome in the halls he had cleaned so meticulously? Would they cast him out as mere ambition overloaded with false hope? "Let me help you," Angela offered suddenly, and the shock waves of her words rippled through him. "This work deserves attention. I can introduce you to my network. We could secure funding, get you in front of people who can help you grow." The nagging doubt crept back. Angela was wealthy and powerful. Yet was she simply passing curiosity? Or could she be the allies he had longed for? "And why would you even want to help me?" he asked, his voice laced with skepticism. "What's in it for you?" Her expression hardened, crumpling the pristine mask of indifference she always wore. "Do you think I only ever concern myself with profit? If that were true, I wouldn't be here talking to you at all." Charlie felt her sincerity pierce through the layers of doubt encasing his heart. The question of worth echoed violently in his mind. He was not merely a janitor. He had built something from nothing. As they locked eyes again, an uncertain alliance began to form between them, a flicker of trust igniting in the dim corridor. In that moment, Charlie grasped the fragility of opportunity, a notion that his progress hinged upon leaps of faith. But the stakes had risen. As a new dawn appeared, so did a host of new challenges that would come with stepping into the light. Would he be prepared for the scrutiny that awaited him? With each passing heartbeat, he sensed his fears intertwining with an undeniable resolve, the resolve to change his narrative. The path forward was precarious, fraught with the demons of failure and the exhilarating promise of discovery. As he stood there, teetering on the edge of transformation, he realized that each moment brought him closer to a precipice he may have always yearned for, yet never embraced. "Let's schedule a meeting with my team," Angela said, her voice steady. It's time the world met Charlie, the scientist. Yet the very thought of exposing his work made his chest tighten. Had he truly prepared for this moment, or was the gravity of his ambition about to crush him? The question loomed over him, charged with both excitement and dread. Charlie felt the electric pulse of his future unleashed. but it also brought with it shadows of those who might not believe in him. The noise of a new dawn threatened to drown out the whispers of uncertainty. But was he truly ready to embrace the echoes of recognition? The journey was just beginning, and each step beckoned him closer to the truth about himself he had spent a lifetime shaping. As the two stood facing each other, anticipation brewing in the air, Charlie realized he would have to confront more than just the skeptics outside. He had to conquer the insecurities inside himself. The storm was building, and soon he would have to make a decision that could alter the course of his life forever. What would it take to unleash the hidden hero within? As the sun began its ascent, spilling light through the tall windows, Charlie found himself grappling with a tumultuous blend of excitement and apprehension. The prospect of meeting Angela's team stirred a whirlwind of emotion within him, a mixture of hope and the fear of exposure. He had always been comfortable in the shadows, but now the spotlight loomed large, brighter than ever before. Days passed as he prepared mentally for the meeting, the walls of his mind echoing with self-doubt. Despite his desire to share his work, the familiar voices chipped away at his confidence. What if they tear it apart? He questioned silently. He envisioned a conference room filled with sharp suits and polished shoes, scrutinizing not just his ideas, but him, reduced to a mere janitor once again. Yet within the turmoil, flickers of determination ignited. The thought of his late parents filled him with resolve. They had always believed in the ability to change the world, and perhaps, just perhaps, he could do that too. Each night, Charlie gathered notes, diagrams, and his calculations, piecing together a coherent presentation. With every stroke of his pen, he transformed his fear into constructive action, channeling his anxiety into meticulous preparations. The day of the meeting arrived sooner than he expected, shrouded in an uncomfortable elegance that contrasted sharply with his everyday attire. As he arrived, the receptionist greeted him with a warm smile, a stark reminder that he was stepping into new ground, a world he had yet to fully embrace. Angela greeted him with encouragement. "You ready for this?" Her assurance momentarily eased his trepidation. "Just be yourself, Charlie. They're here for your ideas." His heart raced as they entered the meeting room, the atmosphere palpable with anticipation. The long table was adorned with sleek devices and an array of faces, investors, scientists, and executives, each one a testament to a world he had only glimpsed through the tinted glass of servitude. As Angela introduced him, he felt a wave of vulnerability wash over him, the onus of proving himself dawning heavy on his shoulders. Charlie stood before them, clutching his notes, resolutely attempting to ignore the flickers of judgment in their eyes. He drew a deep breath and began, recounting the genesis of his project and the sustainable promise it carried. The words flowed, but each point was punctuated by a tightening in his chest. Despite this, he pressed on, articulating visions of a cleaner future, depictions that came alive through his enthusiasm. Yet just as he pointed to the meticulously crafted diagrams, one of the executives, a man with a sharp chin and penetrating gaze, interrupted. "You're a janitor. What makes you think you have the credentials to lead this project?" The question struck like ice water, paralyzing him momentarily. Searing humiliation clawed at his throat, yet he realized this was not just an attack on his qualifications, but on his very identity. "Because," Charlie said, forcing the words through clenched teeth, "I have seen the problem from every angle. I know what it feels like to be swept aside and unheard. I know that people deserve better." His voice grew stronger, fueled by indignation and a surge of defiance. He had spent too long in the shadows of fear and indecision. Each word became a declaration, a refusal to be diminished by his past. The room fell silent, an unexpected stillness wrapping around him as he continued. With every articulation of his vision, he felt the ground shifting beneath his feet, a burgeoning sense of agency igniting within. He was more than just a janitor. He was a conduit for change, a builder of hope. As Charlie concluded, he noticed the changed expressions around the table, Skepticism gradually gave way to intrigue. Uncertainty flickered in their eyes, but something else. Curiosity, perhaps. For the first time, he saw them not as critics, but as potential allies in a collective venture. Before the meeting dissolved into a flurry of questions and discussions about logistics, Charlie's mind raced with possibilities. He had called forth a part of himself that had long lay dormant, yet the lingering doubts nagged at the back of his mind. Was his journey just beginning? And what consequences would unfold if they ultimately chose to back him? The uncertainty loomed large, yet Charlie stood taller, resolved to navigate whatever awaited him next. The sky was no longer the limit. It was just the beginning. But as discussions swirled around potential funding and development timelines, a single thought embedded itself in his mind. The spotlight had illuminated only part of the stage. What deeper challenges lay ahead, overshadowed by the glimmers of hope? As the week unfurled in an unforeseen blur, Charlie underwent a metamorphosis, spurred by the positive energy from the meeting. What had initially felt like insurmountable pressure transformed into a potent rush of momentum. He began to relish the possibility that he had been granted a voice, a seat at the table he had long yearned to reach. The days became punctuated by hastily written notes, strategic calls with Angela, and moments of quiet reflection where he could envision the vast impact his ideas could wield. However, the shadow of doubt was still a formidable adversary lurking just beneath the surface of his newfound confidence. Each morning, as he meticulously prepared for pending follow-up meetings, Charlie grappled with the feedback from the executives. They had shown interest, true, but would that enthusiasm endure? Was he confronting an audience genuinely eager for innovation, or merely a spectacle to be analyzed and swiftly forgotten? To sharpen his resolve, Charlie immersed himself in research, devouring books and articles on sustainable technologies that aligned with his vision. He sought to arm himself with not just intuition, but facts, figures, and case studies that showcased success. The more he learned, the less he felt like a mere janitor. He was starting to sense the contours of a thought leader emerging from within. One particular afternoon, while sifting through academic papers and online forums, Charlie stumbled upon a story about a school dropout who had revolutionized the waste management industry. The narrative resonated profoundly, stirring a blend of inspiration and urgency in him. If they could innovate from such humble beginnings, why couldn't he? This understanding ignited a fire in him, leading to a late-night brainstorming session where he sketched ideas of collaborations with local tech startups. Weeks later, his first presentation following the initial meeting emerged. Touted as an extension of his initial project, it aimed to integrate community engagement by leveraging local talent and resources. The conference room buzzed with energy, but a few executives wore skeptical expressions. Charlie's heart raced again, but instead of retreating into doubt, he leaned into this moment of collective skepticism. During the presentation, he shared not just technical details, but stories, anecdotes that intertwined the human experience with innovation. Picturing families struggling with pollution and communities sidelined in the pursuit of profit grounded his narrative. As Charlie spoke, he watched the skeptics shuffle in their seats. Angled eyebrows softened. Arms crossed over suits relaxed. A palpable shift began to merge between him and the listeners. He could feel them wrestling with their perspectives, a tug-of-war between tradition and innovation. Yet as he reached the crescendo of his presentation, addressing how changes could benefit not only the environment but also create local jobs and revitalization, someone spoke up again, breaking the emerging rapport. "You're showing us a dream. But what's your plan to execute this? This is not enough without tangible action." The confrontation ignited a flash of panic, but within that moment flickered a chance to show his resolve. How could he wield this seeming setback? Rather than crumble, Charlie seized the opportunity. "Let's talk about action," he responded, heart racing but voice steady. He launched into his preparations for a pilot program he envisioned, one that would use waste management techniques initiated in local schools as a launchpad for community employment. As he presented a tangible pathway to enact change, he noticed the heads nodding with curiosity, the doubt beginning to dissolve like fog in sunlight. As discussions ensued about potential partnerships and pilot programs, he felt the piercing gaze of the earlier critic once more. But now, instead of discomfort, it fueled him. Their scrutiny was not a judge's gaze, but an invitation for dialogue. The sense of being heard coalesced into clarity. Yet, in the excitement, a gnawing fear clung to him. What if he couldn't deliver? What if the enthusiasm dissipated once the applause faded? Charlie left that meeting feeling buoyed, but the precipice of potential failure loomed large. The road ahead, green and brimming with promise, also bore the brunt of uncertainty. Rounding the corner to his car, he paused, contemplating the next step. If plans solidified, would he still have the courage to fight for his vision amidst potential rejection from those who disagreed? For now, he had sparked curiosity. But would that curiosity turn into action, and ultimately progress? The answers awaited him just out of reach, taunting him with their potential. What would his next move reveal about his character and tenacity? A week passed since the presentation, and Charlie felt the weight of anticipation in every corner of the office. The flurry of conversations ignited by his pilot program proposal reverberated in the hallways, and he sensed the growing interest, yet an unsettling simmer of doubt never quite receded. Had he truly sparked change? Or was his moment merely a flash in the pan? Each day started with the same ritual. Coffee in hand, he'd pore over his notes, expand his research, and refine his ideas. He carefully mapped out potential challenges, considering how he would respond to potential critiques from the executives. Every interaction felt like walking on a tightrope, a precarious balance of confidence and vulnerability. Angela had become his confidant, a sounding board for his ideas. Her spirited critiques kept him grounded. "You need to think bigger, Charlie. What happens when this pilot is over? What's next?" Instead of deflating him, her words ignited a focus that had been bubbling under the surface. He thoroughly needed a sustainable vision, not just a project to check off a list. One afternoon, Charlie returned home exhausted, but charged after a spirited brainstorming session with Angela. He decided to take a break from traditional study materials and immerse himself in podcasts and documentaries shaped by real-world developments. He discovered a remarkable entrepreneur who had turned a failing venture into a household name through resilience and smart pivots. The story resonated deeply within him, stoking a fire fueled by ambition and authenticity. Inspired, Charlie scribbled down actionable ideas, unfurling potential outreach strategies he'd previously overlooked. He considered leveraging social media to share updates on the pilot program, highlighting community involvement and local success stories. This would not merely be a presentation or an initiative. This could entice more stakeholders and even the broader public. However, with every new idea, an echo of hesitation emerged. Could he really reach beyond the boardroom? Could he communicate effectively to people not diluted by corporate jargon? His self-doubt bubbled, yet a resilient determination fought against it. The opportunity arose when Angela casually mentioned a local business expo, suggesting he present not only his proposal, but also himself. "These people need to see the man behind the ideas, Charlie. That's what your message needs." The thought sent a tremor of dread through him. Would they see him truly? A janitor with a vision? Or would their preconceived notions cloud their judgment? Charlie spent nights preparing, crafting a narrative that combined the empirical evidence he had amassed with his personal story, weaving together threads of struggle and aspirations. As the date of the expo approached, anxiety tangled with excitement. On the day, standing before an audience consisting of entrepreneurs and potential investors, Charlie felt exposed. His heart raced like a caged bird, desperate to soar. He introduced himself, faltering momentarily under the spotlight. But as he spoke about his experience in the pilot program, something shifted. He realized that the struggles he'd faced, far from diluting his credibility, enriched his narrative. He embraced the moment, telling stories of the community's need for change, intertwining with the stats that established him as credible. The audience listened, and he felt the weight of their eyes shift from skepticism to genuine engagement. But just as momentum surged, tightening again within him, a voice rose from the back. "So what if this pilot works? You've made some bold statements. How do we know it won't fall flat? What guarantees do you have?" That familiar pang of panic returned, but now he welcomed the challenge. The opportunity for clarity called to him. "Let's discuss guarantees," he responded, voice steadier than his pulse. "The guarantee isn't solely in numbers, but in the connections and relationships we build. Each success may lead to a larger initiative. It's not about mere promises. It's about creating a continuum of accountability." As the room echoed with murmurs of approval, Charlie's heart shifted. He wasn't merely fighting for acceptance. He was proclaiming a journey of transformation. Yet self-doubt lingered like a shadow. What if this was his peak? With attention strumming through him, he concluded his pitch. When the applause resounded, it filled him with both hope and an unsettling apprehension. Would this lead to real change? Or would the corporate facade fade like so many before him? He left the stage, feeling raw, yet invigorated. The road ahead seemed expansive, but potential rejection loomed like a storm cloud. What awaited him in the days to come would test not just his resolve, but also the very foundation of why he initiated this journey. Would he rise to the challenge or crumble under the weight of his own ambitions? The days following the expo moved like molasses. Charlie found himself caught in a whirlwind of doubt and anticipation, each moment an opportunity or a potential pitfall. Every email from his superiors and every casual conversation around the water cooler sparked a flurry of questions. He couldn't help but wonder if his impassioned speech had made any real impact, or if it had simply faded into the background noise of corporate ambition. As he immersed himself in the daily grind, Charlie's thoughts began to spiral. The lingering question of what came next haunted him. Sure, the applause had felt good. No, exhilarating. But would it translate into action? What did it mean to build a sustainable structure beyond the pilot program? Days turned into an introspective haze where anxiety and determination intertwined. One evening, Angela invited him out for a casual dinner to celebrate his unexpected success at the expo. They chose a quaint little restaurant that had recently opened in the neighborhood. As Charlie sat across from her, he felt the tension of an unspoken expectation, a pressure to seize the moment and articulate his next steps. "I was thinking," Angela began, her expression curious. "What's really stopping you from going all in on this? You've had some great feedback, but are you ready to lead a bigger charge?" Her question hung between them, and he felt the weight of it press against his chest. "I don't know, Angela. What if I'm just not cut out for this?" The admission felt like an unraveling, his vulnerability laid bare for her to assess. "Charlie, I've seen your potential more than you have. You need to stop underestimating yourself. Believe it or not, your story has the power to inspire, but it needs to be followed by action." Her words ignited something deep within him, and he spoke with renewed passion that night about the connections he wished to forge, the vision he wanted to spread further than the walls of their office. In that restaurant nook, amid clinking glasses and bustling voices, he began constructing a plan not just for the pilot program, but for a transformative path forward. The following week, Charlie took a pivotal step. He reached out to a local social media influencer known for promoting community-driven initiatives. He pitched an idea for a collaborative project that would not only showcase the pilot program, but also highlight neighborhood stories of resilience and change. If successful, this could draw in greater awareness and interest from stakeholders who would see the human side of the mission. As Charlie navigated the potential partnership, the fear of rejection buzzed in his ears like an uninvited guest. Would they see him as just another corporate figure? The thought sent chills down his spine, but something inside him cried out to embrace the discomfort. Nevertheless, the moment came when his request for a meeting was met with silence. The influencer was swamped with requests, and the nagging doubt teased him. What if he didn't stand out? What if he was just another voice lost in the noise? After days of simmering unease, he decided to put himself out there. He reached out once more, this time through an authentic video message. He shared his story directly from the heart, laying bare not just the vision for change, but the passion driving it. When he hit send, a rush of adrenaline surged through him. He watched the progress bar for reaction indicators nervously, but the waiting game tested every ounce of patience he possessed. In that moment, as he grappled with his vulnerability, he realized he was no longer waiting for validation. He was participating in his journey. Days passed. The world outside felt provocative. Then, he received a notification, a sign of life from the influencers team. It was brief, but compelling. They wanted to meet. With a blend of hope and trepidation, Charlie prepared himself for the upcoming encounter. Would he be able to convey his passion effectively? And what would he do if the meeting presented him with an unexpected challenge? As he looked in the mirror before the meeting, determination replaced a flicker of self-doubt. But not far behind that flicker was the question that haunted him. Would he rise to meet the challenge, or would this be just another missed opportunity? The time had come to confront not only the influencer, but the broader world in pursuit of unprecedented change. What lay ahead would test his courage and resolve more than ever before. The coffee shop was bustling, a cacophony of chatter and clinking cups. Yet Charlie felt completely isolated within the confines of his thoughts. He arrived 15 minutes early, rehearsing his pitch to the influencer over and over. Each imagined scenario played out with surgical precision. The smiles, the nods of understanding, and perhaps even the enthusiasm he hoped to inspire. But beneath the surface of his meticulously crafted confidence lay an unsettling insecurity. When the influencer, an effortlessly charismatic figure with an impressive online following, walked through the door, a wave of energy shifted through the cafe. Charlie's heart raced, each beat echoing the uncertainty of the moment. This was not merely a meeting, it was a crossroads in his burgeoning career. The influencer exuded a captivating aura that drew people in, and Charlie felt a potent mix of admiration and intimidation. As they exchanged greetings, Charlie's mind raced, battling with anxiety like a wave crashing against the shore. He started with small talk, but it felt superficial, an ill-fitting veneer over the weight of what he truly wanted to express. "Tell me about your vision," the influencer prompted, leaning back in her chair, expertly folding arms that commanded respect. With a deep breath, Charlie plunged in without hesitation, his voice gaining fervor with each word. He spoke about the pilot program, weaving in personal anecdotes that underscored its significance. As he navigated through his carefully planned points, he noticed the influencer's interest peaking, her expression shifting from casual curiosity to engaged enthusiasm. "Your passion is hard to ignore," she remarked, interrupting him gently. "What's the biggest obstacle you see ahead?" In that moment, Charlie felt exposed. An unguarded truth surged forth. "Honestly, I fear being dismissed, seen as just another corporate voice. My ambition comes from wanting to affect change at a grassroots level, but sometimes I wonder if I can actually make it happen." The silence that followed was heavy with expectancy. For a heartbeat, he feared he had overstepped, revealing too much insecurity. But the influencer smiled knowingly. "Vulnerability is powerful, Charlie. You may think it undermines you, but it can foster remarkable connections. People will rally behind authenticity far more than they will a polished facade." Charlie absorbed her words, their weight sinking deeper than the superficial banter that had filled the initial moments. In this exchange, he discovered something unexpected about himself. He was not only a deliverer of ideas, but also a relatable figure, someone whose authenticity could excite collaboration. As the conversation unfolded, ideas flowed freely between them, evolving from mere acquaintance to a partnership forged in shared ideals. They discussed strategies for amplifying the program's voice, ways to engage the community, spotlight individual stories, and leverage social media not just for marketing, but as a platform for genuine connection. After an intense hour, they wrapped up with a commitment to move forward. an agreement that elevated Charlie's aspirations into tangible goals. As they stood to leave, the influencer clasped his shoulder. "I appreciate your honesty. Your story has the potential to resonate far beyond what you imagine. Make it count." Elation surged in Charlie, engulfing the remnants of his earlier doubts. Leaving the coffee shop, he felt lighter yet empowered. Each step reminded him that he was weaving the threads of his journey into something meaningful. But as he walked to his car, a new layer of anxiety settled in. Would he be able to live up to the expectations now set? This opportunity would require more than a well-crafted pitch. It would demand a level of personal commitment he had yet to fully grasp. What was emerging wasn't just a professional leap. It was a challenge to confront his own limitations head-on, to unearth what it truly meant to be a leader. He reached for his phone, compelled to gather his thoughts before they slipped into the ether. With each tap on the screen, he felt the burden of choice: how to take the next step, how to balance ambition with authenticity. And there it was, pulsing at the forefront of his mind. The fear of failure juxtaposed with the exhilarating thrill of potential. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Something bold and never attempted before. As excitement coursed through him, Charlie knew he was on the precipice of something extraordinary. But was he prepared for the consequences that would follow? In the darkening twilight, he realized that this was no longer just about a program or a partnership. This was about creating a legacy. The question remained, did he have the courage to seize it? Sitting at his desk that evening, Charlie's thoughts were a whirlpool of excitement and anxiety. The ambitious ideas that had blossomed during the meeting filled him with a sense of urgency. He wanted to catalyze change and inspire others, yet the shadow of self-doubt loomed large. How could he transform his raw concepts into a coherent, authentic narrative? A narrative powerful enough to resonate and rally people. He opened his laptop, staring at the blank screen. The cursor blinked mockingly, as if challenging him to start typing. Each letter he hesitated to press felt like another moment wasted, another ounce of potential unfulfilled. With practiced fingers, he began drafting a mission statement. To empower voices overlooked by mainstream narratives. The words flowed, but not without a fight against an inner critic that whispered, "What makes you think you can do this?" To combat the rising tide of doubt, Charlie leaned into the words of the influencer. Her belief in vulnerability as a source of strength ignited a spark within him he hadn't realized was there. This thought drove him deeper into contemplation. What could he share from his own journey that would touch hearts and galvanize support? As he navigated through his thoughts, Charlie remembered his early days in the corporate world. The feelings of being out of place, pushing against the tide of expectation, longing to drift toward a more purposeful existence. Those moments of discomfort knitted into the fabric of his resolve. Instead of shying away from his story, perhaps he could use it to connect on a deeper level. He made a mental note. Be genuine. He wanted others to see him not merely as a professional, but as a person who had stumbled through a labyrinth of challenges and emerged with lessons learned. People often resonated more with the flaws than the polished surface. But could he embrace that fully? His commitment to authenticity ignited a new goal, not merely to market his program effectively, but to create a platform for others to share their journeys too. Charlie envisioned a series of engaging social media campaigns that highlighted the voices of people often sidelined in conversations. He would invite narratives that mirrored his own and encourage collaboration rather than competition. Excitement blossomed again as he plotted the steps forward. Perhaps he could start with a video series on social media, presenting not only the program's mission, but also personal stories intermixed. He could create a real sense of community, an extension of the grassroots ambition driving his vision. As strategies and angles swirled in his mind, Charlie felt a high tide of determination buoying him, a palpable shift reshaping the contours of his aspirations. Yet, within this wave of enthusiasm lurked that familiar specter of fear. Was this vision grand enough? Could it transcend from a mere idea into something that others would believe in, rally behind, and contribute to? Each step felt mapped, but the road appeared steep. Then came the hardest question. What if people didn't respond? What if his vulnerability opened him up to ridicule instead of connection? The productivity of the evening fractured. Charlie's heart began to race, doubt gnawing at the edges of his plans. In that moment of internal battle, he returned to the influencer's words: authenticity. The strength found in sharing personal experiences could foster resilience. Charlie's resolve solidified. He needed to confront the whispers of doubt directly. This was not just about personal gain. It was about crafting a legacy that made his journey worth sharing. That night, he made a choice: to persist. As he saved his notes and closed the laptop, he sensed a shift deep within. Perhaps this was the pivotal moment when he would recognize his own potential, not just as a creator of ideas, but as a harbinger of change. But even as clarity began to sharpen his focus, a question lingered. The influence of critics loomed large in his imagination. How would he defend his vision against the inevitable backlash, the ones who clung to tradition over innovation? Charlie stood by the window, staring into the night. A faint breeze rustled the trees outside, and suddenly, the world felt both expansive and terrifying. With his newfound commitment boiling inside, he whispered to the night, "It's time to take the first step." Yet the fear of facing inevitable challenges loomed. How would he deal with those who would doubt him? And could he maintain his authenticity in the face of adversity? Determined, Charlie knew he'd embark on this journey not only for himself, but for those whose stories deserved to be heard. With a mix of trepidation and fierce determination, he was ready to step into the world with his vision, whatever that might entail. The following day dawned, golden light spilling into Charlie's apartment as the warmth of the morning kissed his weary face. It had been roughly 8 hours since he had recommitted himself to authenticity, and yet the weight of impending decisions pressed heavily on his chest. He could feel the familiar stirrings of anxiety creeping back into his thoughts. Charlie poured himself coffee, a ritual that had taken on a deeper significance lately, a moment of clarity amid rising chaos. As the aroma filled the air, it became an anchor, tethering him to resolve. He needed to act on the ideas churning in his mind. What good was insight without execution? He grabbed his notebook, determined to sketch out the parameters for his video series. His fingers flew across the pages as he jotted down interview concepts and thematic elements. Charlie envisioned powerful stories, unfiltered narratives that could transcend societal barriers. Each name he wrote down held promise. Individuals he believed had voices that mattered might just shift perceptions. But alongside this vision, doubt snuck in again. Were these individuals even willing to share their stories? Charlie set the notebook aside, feeling the pulse of uncertainty thumping at his temples. What if they were reluctant? What if they saw him as just another white guy trying to capitalize on their struggles? The paralyzing prospect made him freeze. He exhaled sharply, forcing himself to push through. Confrontation was necessary. He needed to connect with them, not from a place of assumption, but as a listener, an ally. Perhaps he could share his hesitations in the initial conversations. To show vulnerability. Ironically, being transparent might cultivate a sense of safety, inviting trust. But how would he approach these individuals without presuming to take from them? As the day progressed, Charlie reached out through text, an icebreaker to potential collaborators. Each message felt like he was walking a tightrope, balancing between eagerness and dread. The swift replies came, blending excitement with a modicum of apprehension. Many were intrigued but skeptical, questioning if this was yet another fleeting initiative or genuinely meaningful. After the exchanges, he felt momentarily relieved, but aware that this was merely the first step. It would be critical to craft a plan around these new partnerships, but he needed direction. He steeled himself, deciding to meet face to face. That evening, he arranged casual coffee chats, writing down a list of topics he wanted to discuss. Narratives they felt were missing, experiences of being sidelined, and insights into why their stories mattered. Determination birthed clarity, and his intention sharpened. With each coffee chat, he would consciously engage, transcend his position as merely a facilitator, positioning himself as an equal. However, beneath this steady resolve lurked competing shadows. How would he respond if they highlighted obstacles tied to his privilege? The winds of accountability howled faintly in the back of his mind. Would they see him as a fellow human committed to advocacy, or would they simply view him as an unwitting intruder? Each encounter could potentially unveil layers of discomfort. Remnants of his earlier hesitation crept back as he considered conflict. What could emerge from this? In moments of raw honesty, would they challenge him? Each possibility whirled, intensifying the stakes of his mission. That evening, after the calls and plans were cemented, Charlie returned to his notebook. He scribbled down his thoughts but suddenly found himself stuck again, confronted with the darker parts of his ambitions. The specter of ridicule loomed larger than before. Images of critics tearing apart his efforts flashed in his mind. A sudden clarity struck him. A realization that his fear was perhaps rooted in the stigma of failure, the unwillingness to stand exposed amidst judgment. But could this confrontation produce growth? Was there potential in crafting a new narrative, one that danced through vulnerability and disarmed cynicism? Resolved, Charlie closed his notebook with a definitive snap. The moment had come for him to step forward, fully aware of the risks, but resolute in his determination to nurture these connections. As he leaned against the wall, staring out at the night sky, a question flickered in his heart. Would his efforts genuinely create ripples of change, or would he be swept away by the tide of expectations? With a mix of eagerness and a pulse of trepidation, he understood the time had come to launch forward, not knowing where the current would take him, but firmly committed to navigating it. The breath he took was heavy with potential, echoing the question that would shape his next step. What happens when your own story threatens to overshadow those you aim to uplift? The moment of truth had arrived, and Charlie felt the exhilarating rush of anticipation coursing through him. The coffee chats had evolved from casual introductions to profound discussions that laid the groundwork for building genuine connections. Each conversation unraveled the intricate layers of personal narratives, revealing sparkles of hope and shared dreams intertwined with struggles. As he prepared for the next steps, Charlie knew he needed to present authentic content to his new audience. He was no longer just a janitor and scientist. He was now an advocate, an ambassador for those voices that echoed with resilience, yet were often drowned out by the noise of society. The night before his first video schedule, he sat at his desk, surrounded by prompts and creative thoughts swirling chaotically in his mind. Inevitably, the weight of self-doubt threatened to seep into his veins. What if they share their stories, and I can't deliver? What if they open up, and I miss the depth of their experiences? These questions loomed large, but Charlie reoriented his mindset. He would not strive for perfection. Instead, he would strive for authenticity. His role was to facilitate a space where people felt seen, heard, and understood, not to be the expert, but the willing listener. With resolution, Charlie crafted an outline for the video series entitled Voices from Within, highlighting individuals from various backgrounds, centering on their real experiences and dreams. He felt a sense of responsibility for these stories, a realization that his platform could transform lives. This wasn't merely about his mission. It was about amplifying other narratives, becoming a conduit for collective growth. The day of filming arrived, and the nervous excitement buzzed in his chest. Each encounter felt like stepping into a larger world. The individuals he interviewed carried a wealth of lived experiences, fortitude echoing in every word they shared. The camera captured not just their stories, but the elegance of vulnerability. Charlie found himself entranced, leaning in and asking questions that reflected both curiosity and camaraderie. Throughout the filming process, moments of clarity transformed his earlier apprehension into exhilaration. He witnessed individuals reclaiming their narratives, coaxed out of the shadows. Each session bore fruits not only in captivating stories, but also in profound moments of connection, people experiencing catharsis, a brilliant unfolding of possibility. Charlie was not merely the stitches holding these stories together. He became the canvas upon which they painted their truths. Upon completion of the first video, he gathered with everyone in a cozy but vibrant venue for a viewing party. When the screen lit up, laughter rippled through the crowd as they watched their own struggles and triumphs encapsulated in a narrative montage. The energy was palpable. Each participant beamed with pride, seeing their journey acknowledged. As the credits rolled, a wave of applause erupted, enveloping Charlie in gratitude and fulfillment. Each clap felt like an affirmation, a reminder that he was contributing to a much larger tapestry of existence. Yet an unexpected dialogue emerged amidst the cheers. One of the storytellers, with tears brimming in her eyes, recounted how listening to her own struggles shared on screen made her feel whole for the first time. "This is a reminder that we're not alone," she said, locking eyes with Charlie. "Thank you for giving us space to be seen." At that moment, a profound wave washed over him, manifesting as immense pride and a profound sense of belonging. He had stepped into his role, not just as a participant in the narrative, but as a catalyst for real change. The layers of doubt began to dissolve, replaced with purpose. This was not merely a series. It was a movement towards collective healing and empowerment, a testament to the resilience that thrived within each individual. Months rolled forward as voices from within gained traction, reaching wider audiences, inviting influential supporters to join the cause. Charlie took the lead in community discussions, expert panels, and even school workshops, advocating for sustainable practices in conjunction with personal empowerment. This engagement felt rich with purpose. People began joining the movement, supporting one another through shared experiences, creating a ripple effect of visibility and determination. As he stood before a gathering to share their successes and next steps, his heart swelled. No glimmer of self-doubt obstructed his gaze. He had triumphantly reshaped his narrative from that of the overlooked janitor to a respected community figure, a visionary, an advocate. "I was once terrified of my own shadow," Charlie said, addressing the crowd. "But together, we've created a sanctuary where stories matter. Today, it's not about me. It's about US. Our stories, our collective strength, the change we will forge." He could feel the applause resonate deeply, a profound acceptance and recognition. Each clap echoed the sentiment that he had indeed become the hero of his own journey. The trajectory of his life transformed, and with it, a newfound legacy emerged, one rooted not in power dynamics or hierarchical stagnation, but grounded in equality and shared human experience. And while a flicker of doubt can emerge from time to time, Charlie recognized it for what it was, a reminder of the journey and the layers he had conquered. He no longer sought approval, but thrived on the undeniable fulfillment that came from elevating the voices of others. This was the moment where his heart, once constrained by fear, soared free, crafting the narrative that would encourage individual aspirations to flourish. To all who resonate with transformative journeys, this message is critical. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show you care. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Every thought matters. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It could inspire their journey too.